Hello, everyone. Welcome to Construction News and Events. My name is Kourosh Khoylou, licensed electrical engineer and software engineer, and founder of Zayuk. Zayuk is a property management technology. We provide inspections and a platform for you to manage your property across multiple stakeholders and vendors and do many different things. Give me one moment, guys. Wow. Yeah, different setup today. Okay. So today we're going to go through a few of the events that have been shaking up the world. First off, Venezuela, a huge tragedy that occurred there. And so we'll go through that. It seemed that there was a lot of construction issues across this country, and it was a very devastating quake as well. Death toll tops 1,700. Hope is fading for finding survivors. "72-hour window for rescuing people trapped beneath collapsed buildings has passed," which left hope. Hope is gone. Death toll rose to 1,700 on Monday afternoon. Tens of thousands of people still unaccounted for. Criticism over the government's emergency response and limited access to heavy equipment. The hardest hit state, La Guaira, continues to grow. Limited access to heavy equipment in the hardest hit state, La Guaira, continues to grow. 3 Americans are among those killed. Of the roughly 5,000 Americans believed to be in Venezuela, 12 are missing and more than 300 have reached out to the U.S. State Department requesting assistance. A task force of the U.S. State Department is currently coordinating emergency response efforts in Venezuela. 5,000 people were injured and more than 15,000 people displaced. Time was running out to rescue those still trapped beneath the mountains of debris. Rescuing lives and build camps for those who have lost their homes or cannot return to stay. Interim President Delcy Rodriguez said that the search and rescue operations would continue after 33 people had been found over the weekend. Electricity, water, and road access have been largely restored in La Guaira, a coastal access near the capital, Caracas. So La Guaira is, let me share one screen. Just share. As you can see, it's just to the left of Caracas. Magnitude 7.2 earthquake struck Venezuela's Caribbean coast on June 24th, following shortly by a stronger 7.5 quake a few miles away. The chances of finding survivors diminished with every passing hour. Venezuelans continued using shovels, ropes, and their bare hands as they dug through mountains of collapsed concrete. Joined by a growing number of international rescue teams. Among the rescue teams from the US, France, and Venezuela pulled a man and his son from the ruins Sunday morning who had spent 4 days trapped beneath the rubble. Colombian rescue team saved an 11-year-old boy who had been trapped about 10 feet beneath the debris. That's so scary. Imagine you're just under there for 4 days. You're just praying to God. That's all you can do. I mean, it's so sad. Carried away on a stretcher with a broken arm while his mother and sister were killed. Humanitarian affairs agencies said Saturday that a total of 44 international urban search and rescue teams comprising 2245 specialists and 140 search dogs had been deployed to Venezuela. More teams, including rescuers from Israel, arrived Monday. U.S. Southern Command shared a post on X showing Marines assisting the ongoing search. Wow, that is horrible. Very difficult. Very difficult. And now, the reason that that occurred, I think, it was just poor infrastructure. Strongest to hit Venezuela in more than a century. Latest to strike a country struggling for years with severe economic and political upheaval. And of course, that references the Maduro regime that was overthrown earlier this year. Whoa, look at this. Gotta show that. You gotta show that. Dang. So I think on Facebook you can't see, but on YouTube you can see the devastation is incredibly catastrophic. I mean, only a natural disaster can do something like that. That's not true. Actually, man made bombs can do that too, but it's just like in a moment. That looks like Armageddon. And even standing on there is, not necessarily safe. Partially collapsed building. Oh my goodness. It's very devastating. All right, so massive pair of back-to-back earthquakes, 7.2 and 7.5, struck the northern coast within 39 seconds, caused by tectonic stress between the Caribbean and South American plates. Let's check those out. Caribbean and South American plates. And I think there's this idea that knowledge isn't extremely valuable because we have AI, and that's not true at all. Knowledge is as valuable and as worth attaining as ever. Knowledge is power, when the AI breaks, you can use your knowledge to continue and even tell yourself where that AI isn't necessarily correct. Okay, so here it is. The North American and Caribbean plate. And as you can see, it goes North and Andes plate. So the Caribbean plate is quite small and it lies right above North America or South America. Okay, that makes sense. And that makes sense why you saw literal cracks in the beach in Venezuela because the tectonic plates meet right there. Hit densely populated coastal areas, triggering widespread building collapses, leaving hundreds dead, thousands trapped. Economic perfect storm combining rare seismic mechanics, vulnerable urban infrastructure, and challenging geography. 1-2 punch because there were two within 39 seconds. They were weakened and cracked by the first tremor and completely brought down by the second. Shallow crustal rupture. The earthquakes were highly destructive because they were incredibly shallow, rupturing a depth of only about 6 miles, which release energy directly into the surface rather than absorbing it deep within the earth. The epicenters originated along the San Sebastian fault system right on the northern coast, putting severe violent shaking directly underneath densely populated urban hubs like Caracas, La Guaira, and Maracay. So let's check out the San Sebastian fault. Okay. Boom. Caribbean plate, South American plate, San Sebastian fault. This is quite an image. Let's check out one that we can. I was checking out Venezuelan geography too earlier because so it looks like it's just along the northern coast, Caracas, Maracay. I am not a robot. Here we go. Okay. And La Guaira, Venezuela. Let's, let's go to a map and see where it is. Oh, it's right on the. Okay. So it's a state right on the beach, right on the ocean. Wow. These towns can be extremely difficult to enter as well. You can understand that. Even probably getting to Caracas is easier because there's a high possibility this is like let's just go to Google Earth and see what it's like. just try it out for a moment. So, extreme proximity, decades of infrastructure neglect. So, it was a three-way: proximity and depth, 1-2 punch, decades of infrastructure neglect, lack of code enforcement, vulnerable construction types. Venezuela technically has modern seismic building codes, but decades of corruption, shoddy licensing practices, and economic collapse meant building regulations were rarely enforced. A significant portion of urban housing consists of unreinforced masonry or brick construction, completely fracture and pancake under violent shaking rather than bending with the seismic waves. Decaying monitor networks. Scientists noted Venezuela's once advanced seismic tracking infrastructure had become virtually non-existent due to years of government underfunding. Risky geography, yes, and this is kind of what I mentioned. La Guaira just seems like a difficult place to uh, to be. Where is it? There it is. That's just kind of this beach town with mountains right above it. And you can, I mean, it seems like these mountains are the, result of seismic shifts. Um, that's very sad. So, risky geography, coastal state. One of the hardest hit areas features steep mountains that drop sharply into narrow coastal strips, built on highly unstable soft sedimentary soil, which acts like jelly during an earthquake, violently amplifying the seismic waves and triggering massive landslides that buried surrounding communities. And five, a false sense of security. Because massive magnitude 7 plus earthquakes are historically rare along the southern Caribbean plate compared to the Pacific Ring of Fire, local populations and city planners had a false sense of security. So this was a very tragic event, and there will likely be more casualties, which is adds on to the tragedy. And we just need to double down and be grateful for what we have, which is um, if you're in a state where the requirements are pretty strict, it's actually a blessing. It might increase the size or the cost, but at least you won't have much lower chance of those types of tragedy. And people talk about ownership and renting, and that's a complicated task. But as long as the place you're living in is actually stable, it's the most important thing. Actually secure, it's more important than even owning it. Because what's the point of owning something if it's not structurally secure? It's very little point, actually. It's not going to be good for you. So next we will go to the Utah fires. So in case you're not aware, we are going through a uh, very large El Nino event. So, just really quickly to talk about weather systems before we continue. Hopefully, I'm not too loud for you guys right now. Um, the update my audio. Sorry, guys, if that wasn't the best audio. So, three firefighters were killed fighting Knowles and Gore fires along the Colorado border. Emily Barker, Nick Hutcherson, and Sydney Watson tragically lost their lives while on duty to various U.S. Wildland and Forest Services. They were involved in a burn on June 27th, resulting in shelter deployment, a last resort tactic during wildland fires. And it's super scary. Wildfires have erupted over the past week across the West, fueled by months of dry weather and record lack of snow. Experts have been warning for months that extreme fire dangers are likely this summer. With more than 24 large fires burning across the U.S., almost 8,000 wildland firefighters and dozens of firefighting helicopters have been deployed. About half of the largest blazes are in Alaska, while the rest are mostly in western states. National preparedness level for wildfires to a 4 on a scale of 1 to 5. Resources are beginning to be strained. High winds in the mountains of Colorado and Wyoming, in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and across portions of the High Plains were the highest concerns. Evacuations were in place for 7 fires, including in Arizona and Washington State, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. The crew that had the 3 firefighters that were killed were assigned to a helitack crew that can be dropped into remote areas by helicopters and whose mission is to prevent new fires from going out of control. But it can be extremely dangerous, often taking places where fires are rapidly expanding. The Snyder Fire in the area has burned about 44 square miles. Wildland Fire Service, created earlier this year to streamline firefighting on public land, said in a statement that it stands united with the Forest Service in grief. Came almost exactly 13 years after a crew of 19 wildland fighters were killed when they were trapped in a brush-choked box canyon near Yarnell, Arizona. Okay, so the fires are a result of historically severe drought, record warm winter with very little snow that melted too early, parched landscape, depressed river levels, dried out vegetation, and ground looking like it would in August and June. Overwhelming majority of 380 plus active fires this season were sparked by human activity rather than natural causes. So that's a very tragic thing. Okay, and finally, we are going to chat about the Boyle Heights fire as well. Boyle Heights held a Coolidge cooling storage unit that was undergoing some tests in solar, and those tests caused a fire, and that fire caused the storage burnt for nearly a week, and that storage facility held a lot of food, and that food is rotting away, which is causing a lot of problems. After formulating a plan, the city of LA has begun hauling millions of pounds of rotting food out of a burned cold storage warehouse in Boyle Heights. Pest traps were placed outside and along neighboring residential streets. The company that managed the facility is using deodorizers and misters to mitigate the smell. The fire may be knocked down, but the crisis is not over. Firefighters battled for several days to knock down the fire that sporadically shrouded Boyle Heights and East LA neighborhoods in smoke after igniting on June 17. Large metal stacks of thawing food inside the warehouse prevented firefighters from safely entering the building to get to the flames directly, forcing them to tear part of it down so they could fight the flames with water cannons from the outside. They expected a virtual caravan of heavy haulers rolling down city streets to clean up the damaged warehouse, while other workers simultaneously were trying to keep hungry pests at bay. 85 million pounds of food, including meat and fish, is expected to be hauled to multiple landfills in LA, Ventura, and Riverside counties. They estimate it will require 5,000 truckloads. Environmental hazards from industrial disasters too often fall on communities like Boyle Heights, Lair, Mayor, LA, Mayor Karen Bass said. Much of the cleanup work is being done by private companies contracted the by Lineage. Lineage is the company, let me see, company that manages the the facility. Aggressive cleaning deadlines. Lineage has contracted a private fire company to continue spraying water into smoldering areas of the rubble when needed as crews work to remove the debris. LAFD was set to hand control of the building back to Lineage on Monday, but Chief Jamie Moore said that an official handover would have to take place later this week because of ongoing efforts to eliminate hot spots in the warehouse. Wow. And June 17th, that's nearly 2 weeks ago. The trucks making the trip in and out in the area will avoid residential streets. Lineage has also contracted with Orkin and Signal Restoration Services to keep pests from being drawn to the spoiling food. Interesting. So that's an active situation as well. Well, thank you everyone for joining me, and hopefully you all have a great day and a great week ahead of you.